All right, yo, what's poppin', man? You know what time it is. Your boy, Mr. J Hill, J Hill Podcast. We are live in the city, Baltimore City, that is. We actually live at CIAA's right outside where they play the games at. So we in the trenches, in the thick of it, pause. But special guest to my left, man.
That was crazy.
That was crazy. Yeah, that was crazy. Special guest to my left, man. As y'all can already see, man, I like to introduce people for who they are outside of what we know them as because that don't make us, right? Especially men. This guy's a father, he's a husband, a black man who really stands on authenticity, which I loved. But as you guys know him as, he's the Baltimore City mayor. He's just had 2 terms. The first mayor to do 2 terms since Martin O'Malley, which was like 20 plus years ago. Yeah, Brandon Scott. What up, brother? How you doing, brother?
What's up?
I appreciate you, man.
I'm good. Appreciate you.
Yeah, first of all, I always thought of like, how does it feel? Like, you're not just a mayor, so many mayors around the country, right? But you somebody that people are championing for. I feel like you're like the city's champ, like the people's champ. How does it feel to walk in them shoes?
For me, it feels normal, right? Because when you from a place, you love a place, you're a part of the community, you grew up here, you done been through all the real experiences. Who better than lead the city than someone like that?
Yeah.
When you also set yourself, for me, I said I wanted to be mayor when I was like 7 years old. When you walk in your purpose your whole life, when you get there, when you do everything, when you start as the intern at City Hall and end up as the CEO, it's supposed to feel normal for you. And for me, it's normal because this is Baltimore. This is my home. And so it's always just going to be, I tell the kids all the time, yes, I'm the mayor, but more than that, I'm just a young black boy from Park Heights in Baltimore, who just happens to be the mayor.
But the thing, that's true. But we know for us, black people especially, it's 10 times harder.
Absolutely.
Right. So one thing that we see a lot, especially in corporate America, working in positions that you hold, we have to do this code switch. We can't give them the same us outside in the neighborhood that we could give them in the offices. Do you feel like it's the same? You have to code switch a little bit, or
No, I don't. I don't code switch it. It makes some people uncomfortable, but if my wife was here, what she would tell you is she tells anybody the thing that she loves about me the most is that I am going to be the same person in any room that I'm in, right? So when you think about that, I mean, I'm that same Brandon who grew up at Park Heights in Cold Spring, right? I'm the same person that went to St. Mary's College, that went to Mervo, right? That went to Malcolm X and Dr. King. That same person acts the same way when I was in the White House with President Biden, being in the Oval Office, whether I'm in a boardroom with CEOs. You have to show up as your authentic self, no matter where you are. And for me, that's reflected in many different ways. The way I wear my hair, what kind of shoes I wear. I'm going to let people know that, listen, I'm going to do my job and I'm going to do it better than anybody that's ever done it before. But I'm going to do it in a way that's real to me and real to my city. Because we want to live in a world where young black boys and young black girls, when there's some of my sister mayors, are going to be able to follow in our footsteps and make our cities even better than we have, because I tell the kids that too. I want one of them to be the mayor and be 100 times better than I ever was. But only way that they can do that and be their authentic selves is someone has to do it before them, and showing up in that way. Because look, I have a political science degree from the 5th ranked public liberal arts college in this country. But I also grew up in a neighborhood where people were dying every day, right? Those are 2 worlds. I'm a part of both of those worlds. So I have to be able to show up as me all the time.
That's great, bro. And honestly, we're bridging the gap between 2 worlds. I do feel like it's a time and place for everything, though, right? And I feel like, especially for kids, young kids that come out of Baltimore, we got this thing about authenticity, but I don't think we understand how to separate authenticity for time and place.
Yeah, for time and place.
Yeah, it's like, I'll tell you example. I remember I was at Coppin. I was Mr. Coppin State University, right? And I'm also a man of Omega.
Hey, Coppin.
Yeah. So I remember me wanting to represent Omega Psi Phi while being Mr. Coppin, because I wanted to show people that you can be a Q and the Mr. of your university. And I never forget the school was saying, yeah, you are a Q, but when you put this tie on, you put this button on, you represent Coppin State. And Coppin State isn't just Omega Psi Phi. Coppin State is Kappa Alpha. It's so many things. So how do you tie in time and place but still being yourself, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I think that what you have to do is you have to understand what you're trying to accomplish in whatever room that you're in, right?
Mm.
I have to be in that room. I'll just take it back this way. If we were having meetings like we were having when President Biden first got in office around COVID and gun violence, right? I'm going to be there as the mayor of Baltimore talking about this issue that has been plaguing our city forever. But I'm also going to be talking about that issue that is informed with my lived experience as a young Black man living here, right?
Okay.
And being able to help them understand it from a viewpoint that they've never heard before.
Mm.
That's how you can be your authentic self and show up in the way that you're supposed to show up in those rooms. Combining those things together, combining my political experience, my academic experience, my work experience with that lived experience and showing up as a true Black man. You don't have to shrink yourself. You can rise and be yourself at the same time.
That's a fact. But we can't. So y'all, I think Black mayors have like an excuse because I don't know all of the information, but y'all have like an organization right across the nation. But even in that, right? Because I think it's like 600 some Black
A
males.
lot of us.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
got more. We got a whole bunch of new ones this year.
Okay, congratulations. But at the same time, we can't ignore that we were the minority in this country for so long, right? So when you walk in these rooms, I would assume it's still you still kind of get a funny look, or how is it that now? Is it
No, we don't get
no?
a funny look, and it's the organization talking about is AMA, the African American Mayors Association. I'm the
Exactly.
first vice president this year.
Oh,
I'll be the
congrats.
president next year.
Yeah.
No, I think that what has happened is when you look at these groups, whether it's AMA, there's one for all mayors, the U.S. Conference of Mayors, folks that came before us knocked down a lot of doors. For example, the U.S. Conference of Mayors, that includes all mayors. And these organizations aren't party, that party don't matter in these organizations. It's about being a mayor because some of the mayors that are in the country that are Republican have the same issues in cities like that we have, right? So when you're in those room of mayors, you're focused on what issues mayors have to handle. But people have broken down doors for us to even be in those rooms. People like Steve Benjamin, even my mentor, Mayor Ronald Blake, was the president of the U.S. Conference of Mayors. They know that we're going to show up, but we also know that we have to stick together, right? When you think about AMA, when one of our brother or sister mayors are going through something, whether it was Brandon in Chicago, Karen Bass in Los Angeles, we got to show up for each other in a different way. And obviously, we have to communicate and work with each other in a different way. For us, we have to show, especially in the moment that we're living in right now, right? When you think about what's happening in this country in cities and how myself and other Black mayors from around the country were being attacked, right? For actually doing something that no one else had done before. All the cities that you heard the president ramble off in August were all led by Black mayors, have all seen the lowest amounts of violence that they've seen in my lifetime, right? Record lows of violence. We got to band together and show up and make sure that all that progress that is made before doesn't go backwards, but it goes even further. So they know when we step in the room that we mean business, that we're not going to turn back the clock. We're not going to allow anybody to ignore Black issues, to ignore Black mayors, to put us on the side. Don't give us real power in organizations and on committees. No, we're going to show up. And if y'all don't accept that we are ones that are leading, that we should be at the table, then we're going to make a lot of noise and we're going to flip some tables over if need be.
Yeah, that's why because I would assume that I mean just by our country itself, right? Like I don't even have to be the mayor and walk into an all white room, and I can almost feel the tension. So I would assume like it would be the same on a mayor.
Yeah, it's different for like it's and the great thing about the group of mayors that we have, right, is that everybody's different and everybody knows we can play to each other's strength, right? Like typically, if you want, when it's time to start some shit, it's gonna be Brandon and Brandon. They already know. Me and Brandon are the other one. And both of us walking in the room together, everybody's like, damn, here they come, right? But folks, my brother Justin Bibb, Justin is somebody who he knows, he builds bridges. He does like you got so many folks that are great. My brother Quentin Lucas in Kansas City, it's the same way. We all know how to work together and we all know how to lean into each other's strength because it's also important to note that not every city across the country is blessed like Baltimore. We're in Maryland, right? Well, we have the governor, we got Governor Moore, who we have a state that has a lot of people that look like us, a lot of Black and brown people. We know that we're going to be protected here and do. But when you're talking about like My mayor in Atlanta, brother Andre Dickinson, he's dealing with the state of Georgia. He's dealing with the state of Georgia. They're dealing with Missouri. They're dealing with Alabama, Mississippi, right? It's just different from them. And they can't do or say some of the things that we can say. And we have to be there to be the amplification for people who cannot do. Because we get this all the time. Like we all talk literally all day, every day. And they be like, man, you got to get the people off on the internet. They want me to do this program like you guys are doing. But they can be precluded from doing it by their state government, right? So we have to help people, educate people to understand that there's not apples to apples comparisons from these cities, and that we, brothers and sister mayors, are always learning and working with each other. We just had a city of Tulsa here a few weeks ago in Baltimore. We had Albany, New York here. We had Memphis here last year. Everyone's going to work together, but we got to let people know that, and that we're going to be stronger together that way.
So speaking of the togetherness, right? Because you brought up Donald Trump, and when he publicly criticized Chicago, D.C., Baltimore, amongst some other ones, right? And you didn't shy away from it, right? You was like, I mean, you had your words. For somebody that's not into politics, right? They always say coming up, two things you don't talk about: politics and religion, right? In public. So for somebody that might not care about politics or already have a bad taste in politics, when we see, okay, of course we see you standing up for us, but we also see President Trump. It's like a feud. What did I say about the state of the political parties right now?
Well, I think that it's really, this time is really like the worst part of this country's history in decades, right? You're talking about times where, like, if I'm talking to my uncles and my dad and folks who literally lived through integration of schools in North Carolina. And when you have folks like that saying, this is different, we should be paying attention. When you see folks who live through the civil rights movement talk about them trying to turn back the clock and take away rights that people literally died for, this is different. When you see the president of the United States sending troops into on American soil, right? This is different. And what people have to understand, especially black people, in my opinion, is that we know better than anybody what happens when these kind of things happen, right? We know what it's like to be seen as the boogeyman, to be snatched off the street just for existing, to be killed, and all of these different things, that have no rights and not be treated as human. We have to understand that our people literally fought and died for us to be where we are now, which is not where we need to be, but it's a hell of a lot better than where they were before they did all that. And we can't sit on the sideline and let it happen again. You either do politics or it's going to do you, especially in a moment like right now. And it should be no surprise that, like, people were like, were you surprised that the president said something about Baltimore? I'm like, no, he did it the first time. But what you have to grow and understand is, like, why? Why was he now saying, like, oh, these cities are all out of control? Like I said to you earlier, when they had the lowest crime than they ever had, 2025 literally is the lowest amount of homicides recorded in Baltimore's history on record. They started keeping the numbers way back in the 70s, right? You had similar things in Chicago and DC and Birmingham and all these places. What do all those places have in common? They got a lot of people of color, black people, and they got black mayors, right? Yeah. When you understand that when folks have to create a boogeyman to legitimize the stuff that they want to do, they're going to use every ounce of power and influence that they had through media and others to do that. Because when people get normalized to some of the stuff that they see happening to people, right, then they'll think about it in a different way. Like, oh, well, maybe it's not that bad for them to go out and round up people just because they look Hispanic. But I said this a lot before the election, and I'll say it again now. We have to understand, and I said this to black men in particular, they might not start with us. They always gonna come back home. They always gonna come to you, and we have to step up, especially for the women, our brown brothers and sisters, but us. We got to step up to understand that people died, right? Think about that. We're talking about Baltimore City, right? We haven't had that many black mayors. We had Mayor Smoke, right? Mayor Dixon, Mayor DuBurns, who only served for a year, right? Pugh, Rawlins Blake, Jack Young, and me. That's it. That's it. I'm literally the second black male to be elected as mayor in the city of Baltimore in its history. If these folks are able to do the things that they want to do, they want to prevent that from happening. They want to prevent people from you and I to be able to vote. They want to turn back that clock, not to the civil rights movement, but to the 1800s. And they're saying the loud part out loud. That's what we got to understand.
And you know, you said something that stood out to me. It was like, we can't just sit on the sideline.
No.
And the first thing I think about when I hear that is healing, right? Because when we was going through it, where was they at? They were sitting on the sidelines. And it's crazy that, because like we see things with ICE and like Donald Trump deploying ICE people into our communities, and you have some black people that was like that looks at it like, well, now y'all see how we feel, when we can't be like that, because again, like you said, they're doing this to show you that they can do it. And then what you think they're gonna do next? The next step is
to Chicago. When they were in Chicago, they went to an apartment building full of black people, pulled people out, took people out naked from their own homes, women, children, and everything, right? Look at all the amount of American citizens that they've taken out. And I think that's people to understand. If you look at Minnesota, they were focused on African, people of African descent, right?
Yeah.
Like, so we have to understand, think about it like this. If they're in Baltimore, how are they going to tell you and me apart from some of our Jamaican or Haitian or West African brothers and sisters that live here? They won't. They won't be able to tell. They will not, especially if you've been here a while and you got a Baltimore accent, right? Like, they won't be able to tell. We have to understand that. And I know it's a pulling thing, right? Like, we have to understand that you got to step into the fight. And to be honest, for us here, like, and for people around the country, the biggest way for them to step in is that, like, it's going to be election. These elections are going to be the most consequential in this country's history. You got to show up. And they're trying to prevent you from that tells you how important an election is, when they're literally trying to change the maps. They're literally trying to change what you have to do to vote. They're literally doing all these pressures to keep people. You got Steve Bannon, a guy that's one of Trump's biggest allies, and saying that, like, we should have ICE at the polling places, right? They want to keep people afraid from voting like this is a Nazi Germany, so that they can keep power. They know that they're wrong, and they want to flex muscle in order to convince people to be scared.
Wow, that's crazy, because like even a close friend of mine, his, I think, grandparents or something got deported, and like you said, you would never tell us apart, and it's almost like Holocaust all over again. Like, if we allow it, that's basically what's
When
going.
does it stop? If brown people are the enemy first, and they get rid of all of them, right? Then it's black folks. When does it stop? When does it stop? When is it okay now? If all of these people are the enemy, who's righteous?
Sheesh. What about? I ain't gonna say no names. I have a name on mine, right? What about the people that look like us, that's trying to separate us from the inside out, right? Like, they might not be Democrats or anything like that, but they look like us. I got one name in particular. I seen her on, like, under a comment, and I'm like, yo, why are we not standing with this guy? Like, she's literally online talking smack about shit. I'm like, what about those people? Granted, I know you don't care, but it still matters.
I don't.
For the sake of, it still matters.
Since the dawn of time, since folks discovered us in Africa, because we got to remind folks that
Sure.
everybody comes from Africa, even if they don't know it and like it, right? They can argue with themselves, because science and fact is fact. But I think that from the dawn of time, we've had people who suffer from this, like, I'm not like them, I can be just like you syndrome, right? And people are always going to be like that. There's always going to be someone that is there helping to get themselves up in order for them to be at the table, instead of bringing everybody to the table. I'll give you an example. When you think about most of the iconic civil rights photos, right? They were taken by somebody who was actually, every civil rights photo you think about as iconic was taken by someone who was actually working for the FBI at the time. Think about that. Someone that was that close to Dr. King, that close to all of those folks, right?
That's crazy.
Those people are going to always be there. But what we have to do, we have been this forgiving people that we keep letting people back in. No, once you show us that you with them, stay your ass over there forever. Don't come back home once you go over there and find out like, oh, they gonna treat me like y'all anyway one day, right? Let them be over there. And we have to continue to expose those folks. Like my grandmother would tell me I'm supposed to pray for fools, right? But I would say if she was here, Grandma, I'm not in a praying mood right now. I'm in a fighting mood because we're literally fighting for the lives of the future of our people. And we have to understand that, right? Those people are always going to be there. But for the average person, we have to do a lot of education. People are misinformed, and they're misinformed on purpose, right? Malcolm X said, the media will have you believing that the oppressors are the oppressed and vice versa, right? When you understand that and understand that people spend a lot of money to make folks that look like you and I, or folks who challenge, even folks who don't look like you and I, right? Women, all these other folks who challenge the norm, who don't go along to get along, who don't say yes sir, no sir, who want things to move for everybody and will say whatever is right and whatever is wrong is wrong. No more whoever says that, they're people who are just so used to holding on to all that power. They're not just going to give that up because Brandon Scott won the election. They're going to go out and do what they can do to stop me from getting reelected. They're not going to give up because I won again. They're going to do everything they can because for them, this isn't about improving a community, improving a city, improving a state or a country. This is about how they can maintain their power, their weight, their wealth, their influence. And we have to understand that and stop allowing those folks to pit us against each other. I'm a man. I'm not perfect. I never thought I was perfect. I missed shots sometimes. Like the other day, I was playing basketball. I made a lot. I missed a lot, right? But it's about what you're producing. Are you getting wins? Are you moving things forward? Are you staying committed to your community, your city, your people? Are you doing it with what I call the utmost respect and integrity? Are you doing it that way? If you're doing it that way, the noise is going to come. They don't make noise about people who are not challenging the system. People that go along and get along don't have TV stations making up stuff about them. They don't talk about people's cars and all this other craziness with folks who go along and get along. They only do it for people who will not bow down to them.
Hold up, man. Hold up. Let's slow down for a second, because this sound good, right? Yeah, you're a man. But when you say that, it take me to this moment in a movie called Remember the Titans. Denzel, I don't know if you remember.
Great movie. One of the best movies of all time.
All time. He got the coaching gig, right?
Yeah.
They calling him
Coach
Coon.
Give him the bananas. All
yeah.
right.
So he's in the house with his family.
Yeah.
And he opened the window. It was a moment where he opened the window and all his people was out in the street. And it was like, wow, they here for me. But I say that to say because it was another part where they was chastising him, criticizing him. And I'm like, how do you deal with so much pressure on your child? Again, I know you're a man, you're strong, you're built for it, you've been doing this for 20 plus years. I get all that. But is it ever a time where you go home and it's like, man, it's really like, I got a whole city on my soul. It's hard. And they really trying to take me down with type of propaganda. We're going to get into that and everything. But do you have those moments? And how do you maneuver in those moments?
No, I don't have those moments, right? Because you got to think about it like this. I grew up in Park Heights in Northwest Baltimore in the 90s and 2000s, 80s and all 2000s. Oh, there is nothing that someone's going to say online or say in an interview or send in an email. There is nothing that's going to be fucking harder than that. Right? Like,
That's a fact.
we're talking about, I talk about it all the time when I'm there because almost all my family still lives in Park Heights but me, right? We talk about it all the time. It's like, we actually made it. There's so many people that I grew up with that ain't here no more, bro. Right? There's so many people. Like one day when I was on the city council, I was testifying on a bill for a public safety bill in Annapolis in the General Assembly. And every time some shooting or something happens, I get a text alert to my phone. And I look and I see this block, Queensbury, where a bunch of my friends live, right? And they like, the person's dead. I'm in Annapolis testifying on a bill. Right? And I'm thinking in my mind, I'm just like, yo, who is it? So I'm hitting all my friends, nobody responded. Then they call me and tell me it's one of my friends' little brother, someone that I dropped off at school before, someone I seen like when you went through that noise, that internet noise, that ain't nothing, right? When you duck bullets, that internet noise ain't nothing. When you seen your friends, I always tell this story. One of my friends, man, every Christmas, my cousin and I would get like new footballs. And the first thing we would do is run out of our grandmother's house and we out there playing football. One of our friends came out the house crying on Christmas Day. And we like, yo, what's wrong? He wouldn't tell us. He told my father though. He told my dad that his mother, the night before, because she suffered from addiction, had sold all his Christmas gifts. They don't even nothing, bro. And this is the 90s, so you know everybody had starter jackets. And my father pulled me and my cousin up, was like, look, y'all gonna have to give up some of your stuff.
That's fine.
They made me give my homeboy my starter Phoenix Suns jackets. I already had the Hornets joint, right? And I was mad at first, but I grew to understand why they did that, right? Like they understood that he wouldn't have had nothing. It were not for that. And then I understood like why my father and my mother were always having so many of our friends that had less over. Why? Like I ran track at Murphy, one of the best track teams in the state, really in the country.
Yeah, I was all right.
In the country. You went to Northwestern. Stop.
No, it was good when I was there. You crazy.
Yeah, you know, you had Coach Jarrett and Coach Bush, right? When you were there.
Coach Jarrett and Coach Devon, he's actually at Mervo now.
Yeah. You know where he went to high school, right?
Did he go to Mervo?
He did. It's okay.
He did.
But my parents combined saw me one track one time because they were coaching the Kings in Park Heights so they could have a team. When you come up and your family is built like that, right? With my family, I know on my dad's side that they was free in North Carolina in the 1700s. Ain't nothing gonna like, it's not heavier. I want the ball in my hand with all the pressure. That my homeboys in our basketball leagues, they call me Big Shot. I could be 0 for 10. If we down 2 with 1 second on the clock, the play being drawn up for me. That ain't nothing. That doesn't shake me. And I got a wife and kids. I gotta be strong, like not for them and everybody else. Because if I don't, someone that comes from where we come from may never get the chance again.
Bro, I want to touch into that, and I know I got some questions. I gotta ask you, just some journalist questions. You know, it might be some hard questions, but this conversation is good, so I'm gonna stay here for a second. Yo, one thing I saw you say, we were just talking about it, is like you coming up. It was different times, right? And like, and I relate so much because I say it all the time. When I was coming up, the people, the drug dealers, the corner boys, whatever you want to call them, like I couldn't go outside if they wasn't there. Like they were the one policing the neighborhoods. They was the one saying, yo, play football, this ain't for you. And I was a fighter, I was tough, I was all of that. And they wasn't saying it's not for you as if like it made me any less of a man, anything. And it made me think about when you said it, I feel like there was some good coming from the streets. What are some of them things that's good, but how can we differentiate that as young men coming up?
Yeah, listen, I say this all the time, yo. I grew up in a world where I always tell people that, what was it like growing up in Baltimore back then? It was like heaven and hell at the same time, right? Like hell because you had to live through all the things that we lived through that we talked about. But heaven in the sense that I had my family that was real strong, right? I was blessed. My mom, my dad, my grandparents, aunts, uncles, older cousins, all of that, right? Like I was everywhere in Park Heights with everybody in my family. And then I had my community. And that community was my teachers, my coaches, and then it included people that a lot of people wouldn't consider. For me, my family has multiple businesses in Park Heights. One is an air conditioning heating business. Then my uncle has a mechanic shop and a car wash right on Quantico Avenue. I worked there from 7th grade until I went to college, right? Who else gets their car washed every day, right? So I grew up around these folks and they saw me grow up. And because me and my friends, a lot of us that went to school at Mervo together, we all went from Park Heights over to Mervo. They saw something different in us. And they would always say, like, yo, y'all got to be better than us. Don't get into none of this shit. Be better. And one in particular, I'll tell you a story. I was about to go to St. Mary's. I was washing this guy's car, Wiley. He had a big green Denali SUV. So this is like 2002. And I'm going to wash his truck. I wash his truck. He's like, you get ready to go to school, right? And I'm like, yeah, I'm going. He's like, good. I want to tell you something. I want to remind you that you're not like a lot of these motherfuckers around me. I want you to go down there and do what you're supposed to do. Because if I had a chance to do it all over again, I would say, fuck the money, and I would take that football scholarship I could have gotten. And like that took me aback a little bit because I'm thinking to myself, like, how does he now see himself, right? Now he's making a lot of money doing what he does, right? And that day, the truck wash was like $30 back then. He gave me $300. He said, I want you to buy your books, do whatever you got to do. I was at school not that long, he was gone. I never forgot that conversation. And that conversation happened with other folks, but that one in particular, like, be better than us, right? Like, that's the kind of, it was kind of a paradoxical kind of moment, right? Because you're thinking, like, this person, he decides who lives and dies in my neighborhood. And he's telling me, I wish I didn't. He literally said, it's too late for me. I wish I didn't do it, right? That's something that you can't replace that. And I wish a lot of the young brothers could understand that, right? Some people that were where they think is cool were telling me, like, nah, yo, what you doing right now is what you're supposed to be doing. Working, going to school. It was a different time. And that's how it means to have the full community behind you. And that's why, for me, like, when you think about people, like, why do I believe in community violence intervention so much? Why am I paying these guys who used to be in the street to prevent violence? Who better to tell them?
I was going to ask you how do we have these conversations? Because I come from the environment, you come from the environment, but once you get to a certain place, it never changes, right? The kid that's in the hood feel like we can't relate. Whole time I've been there, done that. You've been there, done that. And like, they're not listening to us. I was going to ask you, like, how do we do that? But you,
I think the way that we deal with violence in the city now is different, right? We still, like, police are always going to play a big part. Cause, like, yo, I tell people all the time, like, yo, you can't be out here shooting somebody over a girl and just think it's cool to walk around, or shoot a girl cause she left. Like, yo, that's weak. Like, come on, we not about that.
It's on mandatory.
Free yo, he didn't kill somebody's grandmother. Like, nah, we not on that. We didn't kill yo over an Instagram message he sent to a girl. Like, we come on, yo, we not doing that. Like, and we got to understand that's also a big difference than when you and I were growing up, right? Most of the violence now is over petty, stupid stuff, not over money. That's weak.
Yeah,
but
somebody hurt your feelings.
But we know hurt people, but we also now have a different thinking. When you have CVI, when you got credible messages, people that did time and did all these things, and now they out there working to prevent, that's how it's changing. One of our violence prevention workers, she said it best, the culture is changing. And you got to do all of that work and allow the people who have been there to do it. Because, I can go up Park Heights and have conversations with dudes in a way that no mayor has before, but they know I never did what they do. So I still can't have the same way that some of the folks at Safe Streets that I grew up with can have with them, because they was out there that same corner, and we got to understand how important that is.
Yo, I saw somebody say, actually the same person I was talking about earlier, about they was praising you for the drop in violence, as they do always, because that's a big deal, right? But somebody was like, we always praise him, but we need to be praising the police, the person that's commissioner is really him. But didn't he come in after? Didn't you hire? Or
listen, this is what people got to understand, right? When they think about this thing, you don't see me out here saying, like, oh, I should get all the credit, because who gives a damn? For me, Baltimore gets the credit, right? The reality is we went from 300 plus for 18 out of the 41 years I've been alive to 133, and that's still too much. But you have to understand how these things work, right? It is my responsibility as the mayor of the city, the CEO, by law, to develop the plan, comprehensive way that we're going to deal with gun violence. It's also my responsibility to hire and direct the police commissioner and the police department, right? I also am in charge of the CVI workers and all of that work, right? And obviously the city budget. But it's not just about that. We got community organizations. We got CVI people. We got prosecutors and the attorney general and the state's attorney. You got the federal law enforcement. You got regular community organizations and mentoring groups that do work. Everybody gets the credit. But where this gets lost is that some people are so intent on trying to make it look like it's one thing or this or that, when in their actuality, that is all of it, right? Because, like, if you, for example, people like, well, it's the way that they're doing this prosecution. Well, every prosecution case depends on the work of the police department, right? Yeah. Right? Or it's like, oh, well, it's how the hospitals are working, right? Like, well, yeah, we want hospitals to save lives, but it's less people getting shot, period. So that means that our hospitals are not feeling the same burden they used to feel before, right? In the CBI work, those people are out there interceding in basic conflict that could have risen to violence. It's all of it. And what people have to stop doing is trying to say like, oh, it's this person, it's that person, it's this thing, it's that thing. I understand that it's all of it. But just by the nature of how the world is and the fact that I'm the leader of the city, I am the person that's going to be at the forefront. But as I always say, I said this on CBS National when they asked me who gets the credit, I said Baltimore gets the credit. It's that simple, right? It's about all of us together that are operating that way. But this is how it goes when you're in a position like mine, because when it's all going bad, it's all my fault, right? That's how it goes.
You accept it as everybody else.
But you understand that I'm good. If I can have every problem be like that, right, that is everybody else's fault, that it's going a good way, then I've done my job. That's what we got to focus on. For me, it's about saving lives in the city. That's all.
I did have one question. I was watching the interview, and you kind of just alluded to it not too long ago. You were saying it's kind of the safest it's ever been in our country, in a few cities and states around the world, right, or the country. So how do we like compare it to that, right? I'm trying to figure out how I'm gonna ask this question. Like, how do we measure the impact that you actually had in your 2 terms, or 1 term going on your 2nd term? How do we measure the impact that you had versus it just being crime being down across the country? And
So it's measured, right? So crime was down, I think, in 24, we were 10 points higher on reduction as national average. And we were higher again last year, right? So we've been leading. So the nation has been reducing at this level. We've been reducing at that level, right? Like that's how you look at it, right? Because in the flip though, there's been many years in my lifetime when the whole country went down and Baltimore has not, right? But like it's also a little different when everybody else went crazy up during the pandemic, we stayed roughly the same, right? So you can measure that stuff all the time.
Okay, that makes sense. Yo, something that another thing that hit home for me is this opioid crisis that we having, right? And I know you talk about it a lot. But not more so how to, of course we want to avoid it, right? But you had said something on the news and I was like, that's right. People think when you think of like overdoses, you think of like outside in the alley somewhere, even in a crack house. But I speak about this multiple times. Like my mom's suffered an overdose. I walked in on her, and granted, by the grace of God, she didn't lose her life. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know to call the police because I didn't want to take her from me. I didn't know what to do. So when I'm thinking about it, it's not just, of course, we want to save people's lives and get them off drugs, but how do we keep them off drugs? Because that's the hardest part. It seems like
it's a very hard part, and I think like what you were talking about, I talked about in the interview how most people that in Baltimore that die from overdose do it in home, right? It's like it's not in a vacant, it's not in an alley, it's in home, and that's really us having to get at the stigma. Actually, I announced so the folks know. We, the city of Baltimore, led by a city solicitor, she did it at my direction, sued a lot of drug companies for their role and the pills and stuff that showed up. And we've won over $600 million in restitution that we're now going to be putting out into the community over a 10-year period. We announced like community grants for organizations that are helping people, right? Because this is what folks have to understand. And you know this better than anyone. You can have the best recovery programs in the world. If that person's not ready for recovery, they're going to continue to use. And you have to be able to have those supports. People don't like to hear this, but like you got to make sure they're using in a way that's safe, so they're not dying from overdose. And we've seen this. It's so foreign to us. But if you go to Canada, if you go to Europe, right, they don't have overdoses. You want to know why? Like they have places that they call overdose prevention sites where people literally go to be supervised to use, and then basically like in a medical facility. And when they're ready to get their treatment, the stuff is right there. But for us, we have to deal with a bunch of things, right? We have to deal with the reasons why people are being driven to these substances, right? People feel like they can't earn enough. They got pressures, right? We got to get the jobs and all of that. Mental health is a big and real thing. We have to meet people where they are. People think that dealing with addiction and opioids and overdose is like some cookie cutter thing. a lot of people that are suffering, they work every day, right? It's not people that just like, oh, they just out there walking up and down the streets trying to steal stuff. Like, yeah, that happens, but it's so
That's
much
how much,
deeper.
yeah.
It's so much deeper than that. And like there are a lot of community organizations that are working now that we're helping to expand their work to help people get the health care that they need, get the mental health that they need, get the jobs that they need, get the housing, which is one of the huge factors in it. You have to do all of those things, and you have to do them over a sustainable period of time. And that's why it's always intercedes in a lot of the other stuff that we had. The vacants, the job crisis, all of the housing crisis. Like we got to do all that stuff at the same time and stop thinking that like we can open up a few treatment centers and it's going to go away. Yeah, treatment centers are important, a very important part, but they have to be a part of a coordinating strategy. And we actually laid out, I'll make sure you get it. We have a strategy to deal with
10-year plans.
Yeah, a 10-year plan across the city of
Yo,
Baltimore.
so excuse my ignorance though. Is opioids is that not the same as like dope, heroin?
It's different stuff these days, right? Because you got the pills, you got the fentanyl, you got the mixture, all this kind of stuff. It's not the same way. When we were growing up, like heroin was the drug, right?
Yeah.
Not no more, right? You got folks, pills are a big thing. The fentanyl is a huge thing, and they put in the fentanyl in everything, right? People, they think they buying weed, which let me just say, like you can buy it in the store now. Like go get it the safe way if you choose to do that, which you like. But they lacing the fentanyl with it, right? And then you smoke weed, and now all of a sudden you were just a smoker. Now you got a whole nother problem, right? We got we got to, and that's one of the things that I will say this really quickly that helps too with these organizations. They got organizations that help people test their drugs, so they actually know what's in it, right? You got to know because you thinking you got one thing, you got something else. Now you know overdose. Now you might be gone.
So instead of trying to take it away from you, at least let's
Yeah.
put you in position to if you're going to do it.
Education, yes. If you're going to be safe and you can do it until we get you to the point where you're ready to recover. Because
Yo,
that's it.
you said you like y'all sued the medical
Yep.
system and things like that, but how do you? Because even when I was coming up, I don't even know how much. I remember my mom would tell me like if the doctors ask you how bad it hurt, tell them a 10, 20. Because then instead of getting Tylenol, matter of fact, we gonna say you're allergic to Motrin. You know what I'm saying? So instead of getting Tylenol or Motrin, you gonna get Percocet. You know what I'm saying? We gonna sell them. How if you're saying that I'm at a 10 or 20, right, and pain, and that's the drug to give you when you're at that level of pain, how are we going to separate? How are we going to differentiate? How we know when people are lying or not?
Yeah, but I think that, and I can't go too deep in it because some of the stuff's still pending. But okay, we were able to prove that these companies were purposely pushing it out, and the court agreed. They were purposely giving people stuff that they knew what would.
All right, let's get into some of the questions of people. So, first of all, I think you made a post about the potholes, right? And
Yeah.
people was going around, they was fixing the potholes,
Yeah.
but they fixing it with asphalt. And a lot of the comments were saying, bro, this asphalt, all it's gonna happen is I'm gonna drive over it, it's gonna come out of the streets, going hit on the window. Like, why not just give it a pave the whole street?
The whole street is asphalt. So most streets in Baltimore are asphalt. They're not. You got some that are concrete. But I'm glad you brought this up. Folks got to understand, and we actually probably should do a post about this, about how roads, not just in Maryland, but across the state of Maryland, are resurfaced and why it's been such a struggle in recent years. So just so people know, road resurfacing in Maryland, but we'll talk about Baltimore for now, is done through the Highway User Revenue Program at the state, right? The state collects, so the city doesn't collect gas tax or tolls or any of that. The state collects that throughout the whole state, and they disseminate that down through HUR funds to the city and the counties to do their roads. But there's a difference. The city is the only jurisdiction that's responsible for all of their roads, right? In the county, so for example, if we driving up Park Heights, once we get to 7 Mile and get over into the county, the county doesn't take care of it. The state does for them. This county only has to maintain the side roads, but that's one portion of it. But back in during the Great Recession in 2008, right? Back in that time when they had the big decline in the economy, they had to do it back then. Governor O'Malley and the state legislature took the funding away from HUR, reduced it, for the city and the counties to make up the state's budget because of the Great Recession. Well, when Governor Hogan came into office, they never put it back, right? So from that time period all the way up until 2022, 2023, the city lost because the large share of HRR comes to us because we have to maintain our own roads. We lost $900 million of roads funding that would have went to bridges and roads and things like that. And what we did, myself and the county executives went and fought to get some of that funding rate increased back up. They're not going to replace the money we lost. We did that a few years ago, and it's helped us to start resurfacing more. But now, I was just in Annapolis last week testifying because the way that they're funding us now has a cliff. Starting with fiscal year 28, it's going to go back down if we can't convince the state to pass that and keep it up for us. And that's what people have to understand. Those crews out there doing it the way that they should. Actually go and we can do that. We can set you up to go out there with them. And people will understand like the work that they do. They go out and put that stuff down, and they know that a lot of times like the road conditions are bad. And there's a whole plan. It's called Orange Cone. You can see every year how many miles. I'll probably be putting it out in the map of it, what we're going to be resurfacing in the city. But the truth is, not just myself, right? Because I heard from one of my colleagues on the Eastern Shore that their funding was when we were testifying in that bill a few years ago, that their funding had gotten so low that they couldn't even use asphalt. They were using tar and chip to do their roads. Transportation funding is a huge issue for the entire state of Maryland, not just Baltimore. It just shows up differently here because we lost the biggest amount of money and we have to maintain everything.
Okay, so I remember when I was here, I remember some of the time the asphalt will come up. If the roads are made out of asphalt, how does
It
that
deteriorates.
stuff?
Yeah, and you got especially if you're downtown, you got the steam and all the stuff underneath of it. It's going to deteriorate over time. But when you don't have the funding for the maintenance over it to have it resurfaced, like there's some roads that I've resurfaced since I've been mayor that hadn't been resurfaced since like I was 15 years old, right? Like when you think about that and the amount of lane miles and the funding that is actually needed, right? But you can't. Losing almost $1 billion that would have went to something and not having it is not something that you can just snap and replace. And we got to figure out how we have transportation funding in the state, because it's not just about that too. It's about MTA too, right? And why MTA and the buses and the light rail and subway don't have the funding that they need because the funding is not there.
Okay. Well, speaking of funding, we talked about this a little bit, this propaganda and how, it's one of them questions. Just just get you ready, like,
Yo.
just I feel like this is recent, like since CIAA, something came about misplacing funding. What's this like? Can you explain what?
It's
what
not
is this?
misplaced funding. Like, look,
They saying that you misplacing funding. That's what they trying to say.
no. Let's be very clear.
Mm-hmm.
They're talking about what they call purchase cards, right? They're very clear. If you actually read the report, it doesn't say that like my office, and it's not me, obviously. It doesn't say that like my staff like illegally spent city money. It said that they should have gotten a waiver or this should have had another level of approval, right? And they did it without it. And then some of it is just ridiculous. Like they're like, oh, the city, they spent money on food at the skyboxes at the Orioles and the Ravens game. Well, like the irony of that, like if anybody's ever been to a skybox with me as the host, right? Like, of course we did. Like I'm inviting kids, people's parents that lost their children, firefighters' families that had died, like people that had never been to the stadium, trash workers, people that fill potholes, firefighters and police officers, all these kind of people. Of course, you're supposed to like be able to allow them to eat. People that have never, I took this young man, Mason, who I met after the Brooklyn mass shooting a few years ago, him, his mother, and his sister to the game, who like they just went through some real traumatic, some of our Safe Streets workers, our ROCA workers. That's what it's supposed to be for, right? But this is the key that I want to point out to you. We'll start with the Orioles. That stadium was built in 1992. I was 8 years old. Since 1992, when I was 8 years old, every single mayor in the history of the city has had the skybox there and has bought food with the money there. Not until 2026, when I'm the mayor, when I push back on people's ways of thinking and the way that they have been used to just willpower and people that just that go along to get along, do whatever they say. Have you ever heard a peep about it? The Ravens Stadium has been open since 1997, right? So think about that. Go through the mayors. Smoke, O'Malley, Dixon, Blake, Pugh, Young. Never heard of Pete. People should pay attention to that. Why now? And also, the city is not the only government entity that owns a skybox, right? Like, people should pay very keen attention to why it's just the city of Baltimore. When Larry Hogan was the governor, they never asked, like, how much money is the state of Maryland spending on the skybox at M&T Bank Stadium and at FedEx Field, or whatever they call them, Commanders Field now. People have to understand how that stuff works. The same thing with the truck, right? Like, they are obsessed with this truck, right? And like, oh, the mayor had a over $100,000 vehicle. One is a police vehicle, so it's gonna have a lot of extra equipment. It's a basic truck with police equipment. But this is the crazy part about that. Most government entities, executive government entities, replace their executive vehicles like every 3 years. The truck that replaced was 6 years old. The other truck that replaced, and I'm gonna tell you how long. One of the trucks that were replaced in 23 replaced a vehicle that Stephanie rode in as mayor. She hasn't been the mayor since 2016, right? When they're trying to turn this into something that's like, oh, they're being wasteful. When the irony is, it is like, actually, I purposely, because I grew up poor. They were like, when I first got into office, they were like, sir, do you want to get a new truck? I was like, no. They're like, why? I was like, because ain't nothing wrong with this one. But when it became basically inoperable, because when they get old, they break down, then you had to get a new one, right? It's not something that I wanted to do. It was a necessity, but it's also just being talked about in this slanted way, because they don't talk about who replaces vehicles more often. They only talk about the price tag for one vehicle. But if you're replacing vehicles every 3 years versus every 6 years, and you're replacing a lot of them, you and I both know that the numbers ain't going to add up. But it's how they present the information, because they want people, again, to think that people that look like you and I, people that cannot be controlled, people that come from where we come from, are automatically going to be corrupt and they shouldn't be trusted, and try to convince our people of that. But we're smarter than that.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you, and this is no way me trying to make any correlation, say the same, it's just generally just areas. How hard is it to I don't want to say misuse, but make a mistake when it comes to these funding? Because we've seen, I want to say, again, I'm not trying to say something similar, I'm not trying to say it's the same thing, but Captain Pugh, we see her get arrested for like
selling books.
Yeah, and then
Mayor Dixon.
I think it was like 500. That wasn't even. How hard is it to?
It's totally different things, right? They were doing something that they knew was wrong. That's why they were moving in the way that they were moving, and that's why they both have apologized for it, right? Like these, and this is the thing. We can't like hold that over their heads forever. I just saw Mayor Dixon last night, right? People would think that like we hate each other because we ran against each other. Like, no, I know this lady my whole life. She made a mistake. You got to move on for that. Mayor Pugh made a mistake and paid for it. She went to jail. Now she's back home. She did her time. We got to let people come back into their community and be better, right? But what they were doing was actually wrong and outside of the scope of what they're supposed to be doing as official. Me paying for a funeral for somebody who died, who was a city worker, right? And maybe the team didn't get the clearance that they were supposed to get to help this family out, or they ordered food in a way that they weren't supposed to order without an extra. That's not misuse. It's not the use. It's appropriate. It's the process. We're talking about the process, and what they don't tell you, and we'll send it to you so you can read it. most of the processes and things that they're talking about, we already started to fix, right? They just don't tell you that part because that's not sexy. It's not sexy to say like, oh, well, actually, if you read the full report, you'll see that they've done A, B, C, X, Y, and Z. You'll see that this and that and this person and that thing has been put in place. But we live in a world where people are looking for the quick hit and not talking about,
especially on social media.
oh, well, all those things. All right, you good?
Okay, I'm always done. My bad, y'all. I'm sorry. Nah, that's a fact, bro. And I love the fact that you're just so open to talk. Like, I love that. It's dope.
You can be that way when you didn't do nothing wrong. It is what it is.
Yeah. Yo, how do you? I'm a quick pivot. I feel like Baltimore. We have this hold on our people. We love our people. I was curious. Do you think? Follow me. Do you think somebody can be from Baltimore and like rep two different cities publicly?
I don't know about that, yo. I don't.
No.
No.
All right.
You gotta pick one, yo.
So you ready?
Go ahead. What you about to do?
So
you about to talk about much some Atlanta stuff? Yeah.
No. I was gonna ask you. So how you feel about Melo?
Oh, me and Melo had this conversation. We had this conversation. I look, and you can run the tape at the House of Melo thing. I said, look, we know you was born in New York, but you ours.
Yeah, man.
It's that simple. Like, you don't talk like a New Yorker, yo. You like he know.
Where you from? Run away.
That's my '84 Baltimore brother. He know, yo. He know. Like, nah, yo. No.
Yo, do you are you listening to any local music?
Not like right. Yo, I ain't got time. I got 2 under 2. You know what I listen to all day long? Gracie's on them. You understand? Elmo, Baby Shark. Like, people like, yo, what you watching? I'm like, I barely get
Miss
to
Rachel.
the basket. Yeah. Miss Rachel, Gracie, Elmo, it's Lucas and friends. I ain't got, Yeah, you want me to know, I can tell you the best new ABC song, though. I can give you that, though. But other than that, no, Miss Gracie's
Corners?
Yeah, Gracie got bangers.
Yeah. Yo, so do you, all right, for the people that, and like, I ain't gonna say people, right? And we've been talking, for somebody that will say, I'm not political, right? I'm not into politics. Politics might be boring. What do you say to them?
I tell them,
be real. You don't have to.
I tell them that, like, politics impacts your life every day, whether you know it or not, right? Whether you can get on that bus and go to work and that job is there is impacted by decisions that people that are in policy making and politics decide. And if you want stuff to be like, for example, we'll give a perfect example, right? For years and years and years before I became mayor, they were closing rec centers. They closed all the PAL centers. They did all of these things, right? Like closed pools, all of these things. But then I got in office someone who grew up in rec and parks. And guess what happened? Rec and parks budget went up by 40% since I've been in office. We opened 4 new rec centers, 6 pools. I got 5 rec centers under construction right now. That matters. And that's why people have to be a part. Your representation matters for the stuff that is important to you.
That gave me chills, bro, because the power centers, I feel like that saved a lot of people's lives, bro.
I know Tawanda Rec saved mine.
I ain't gonna lie. Also, that's crazy, bro. I appreciate you so much. I know y'all put the time. Yeah, this is just a question.
Go ahead, you good.
How do y'all go about closing schools?
So we don't. The city does not control schools, right? So
I can't go back home now.
Back when I was in 7th grade, schools essentially are like a private entity, or really an entity of the state, because all their policies and laws are at the state level, and most of their funding comes from the state level. People think about it because we have like 2 elected school board members and I appoint the board. But unlike the police department, the CEO of the schools doesn't work for me. Like, I can go to the police commissioner and say, do this, do that, and he has no choice but to say, yes, sir. Same thing for public works, transportation, rec and parks. That doesn't exist for schools. Now, we have 2 ways that schools get closed, really, that I'll explain to you really quickly. Through the 21st Century Schools Program, which is how we're building all the new schools, because we have less people, right? The state said you can't get the amount of money that you need to renovate every school with the amount of kids. So you're going to have to put schools together to get the amount of kids in there, because it's by per pupil. So it happens that way, and that's been great. We built more new schools, renovated more schools than any urban district in the country. But then there's a process, especially for the charters. This is where this really comes into play. For the charters, where they have to get reapproved through a process, and they have to meet the stuff that the school board and the school system has put in before them. And sometimes they make tough decisions that they have to close, that people don't like sometimes, but
Yeah, I know
it's not something that I control though.
we at CLAAs. I will have to ask you, like, how is it looking? You have any plans for the future? Like,
Well, look, the future is never let it go back to Charlotte. We got them in 2029. Sorry, Charlotte, not sorry. But the CIAA existed in Charlotte for a long time. They felt true love here in Baltimore. But it's always a great week. It's one of my favorite weeks of the year, one of the blackest weeks of the year. Black CIAA excellence in Black Baltimore for Black History Month. Where else could you rather be? But it's also great. For example, yesterday I was here and saw two of our own doing battle on the court. The young lady, Abrasia, who was a ball girl in a tournament when it first came here, is a defensive player of the year for the CIAA. And another young lady was playing for Bowie, and they battling each other in the paint. You don't get better than that.
how is attendance looking?
It's good. Attendance is up.
Because we hear negative stuff, but
Attendance. If you want to talk to like CIAA people about the games and the tournament, you really got to talk to the presidents and the folks at the schools, right?
Okay.
Not the party promoters from Charlotte that are mad, because they will tell you that people actually come to the games here.
I heard it's
scholarships. The scholarships are more here. They feel that true love. So,
man, I appreciate you, man. Thank you so much.
anytime, my brother. Anytime. 1-5.
Oh man, Mayor Brandon Scott, man, Mr. J Hill podcast. This is a great conversation. Hopefully, go it again. It's a wrap. We out, guys. Woo!
If you're a podcast host, listen up, this one's for you. My name is Allie Jackson. I'm the host of Finding Mr. Height, a dating and relationship podcast that I've been doing for 4 years now, sharing my positive and practical approach to dating that's built on my own life experience. And I wanted to share another experience that I've had, my secret behind monetizing my show. It's called Red Circle, and I was just telling my colleague about how much I love their platform. With Red Circle, not only am I getting a seamless hosting experience, but I also love the support I receive in ad sales. It's not just typical ad sales either. It's targeted opportunities based on my show and my life. And the platform is super simple. You just set your preferences and Red Circle matches you with sponsors that align with your show. You can vet every opportunity and their platform gives you great analytics. More recently too, my Red Circle team has brought me opportunities outside of my podcast on social media to really augment the podcast partnerships, bring them full circle. I just can't recommend them enough. If you want to give it a try, go to redcircle.com to get your free trial. That's redcircle.com for a free trial.